In today's video, we're going to dive deep into teleoperation and how it's the key to scale robotics and how crypto fits in. Before we get started, this video is a quick summary of our in-depth deep dive on our newsletter, which is Robotic Alpha. Go check it out. Now let's get right into it. So what is teleoperation? It basically means operating machines and robots from a distance. You essentially have this feedback loop where a human controls a robot from afar and then receives feedback from that robot. So why is teleoperation so important for robotics? Teleoperation is the middle step that allows us to basically get a ton of data and also allow robots to be usable. So think of it as almost like different levels. On one hand, there's complete manual control of a robot, right? In that case, the AI is really not doing anything. The second level is shared autonomy. And this is where the robot is perhaps handling 80% of tasks by itself, but for those 20% where it gets stuck, a human has to be in the loop to go and essentially fix things. And the third level is basically the human just providing high-level commands. So this is essentially giving a robot very high level instructions, and then the robot goes out and executes it. So why is teleoperation such a key piece of robotics and scaling the robotic economy? One, right now, robots simply aren't ready to be fully autonomous. You kind of need some level of control. So that's where teleoperation comes in. It ensures that perhaps instead of one human controlling one machine, a human can control 10 machines because the machines are perhaps 80% of the way there in terms of autonomy, and then the last 20% is where the human comes in. So it can increase efficiency a lot. So it's basically like this level of gradient or levels of like skill that robots learn. Basically, they allow you to do tasks that otherwise would be too dangerous for humans, right? So if you're controlling a robot or machine remotely, you can go and do hazardous tasks, and in the meantime also generate useful data. So in the future, the robot can completely do it by itself. So you can reach very hard to reach environments that otherwise would be impossible to deal with. So the third is efficiency. And this is where we're getting into that second level of shared autonomy, which is where the robot perhaps handles most of the tasks itself, but on edge cases or unique situations where it gets stuck, human can come in, help it solve the problem. And then also you get a lot of data, so the robot doesn't have to do that again and again. Obviously, you have remote work. So the fact that you can have somebody in the Philippines or in Asia managing a shared machine in the US, it could be quite useful. Obviously, there are issues with latency, etc. But in cases where the latency is not as much of an issue, this can work really well. And the last most important reason is teleoperation is what's going to really allow us to build smart robots and possibly even help us get to AGI. So with teleoperation, what happens is that you're essentially generating a ton of data as to how a human would actually solve the problem. So a human controlling the robot to get around and solve whatever problem it's stuck on, that then generates a ton of useful data, especially on edge cases. And if you think about it, teleoperation basically makes finding edge cases much more efficient because the humans don't need to be involved for every single task. It's more so, let's say they get stuck in some sort of tricky situation. Let's say you have some sort of robot that cleans floors, right? A Roomba style robot. Let's say it gets stuck in a certain situation. A human can come in, a human that's perhaps managing 30 of these robots or 40 of these robots, has 40 of these on screen, and then maybe one of them gets stuck somewhere, and the human can come in, basically find a way to get it out of that situation. And now there is a bunch of training data on how the human was able to solve that issue. So it's incredibly valuable for actually training smarter robotic models. So where does crypto fit in? So like I mentioned, robots need a ton of data to learn, right? To build a robotic model that works, you need a ton of just high quality motion and feedback data. And that's exactly what teleoperation generates. Gathering this data can be costly and slow, especially, for example, let's say you're a San Fran-based startup. What are you going to do? Hire a bunch of people in a warehouse to go and teleoperate these robots right there for like, $50 an hour, right? Like it's going to be very expensive. On the other hand, by using teleoperation, where you have people remotely managing these and then rewarding them with tokens, you can reduce that cost massively. So that's where there's a huge advantage in terms of cost and scalability. So crypto enables fair, transparent rewards for human operators, and then you're essentially able to create a whole new industry around this. And to be fair, I think this could be the next play to earn style revolution, but actually backed by sustainable economics. Now let's talk about a few teams that are in this area. So the first is Reborn. So there's a ton of things they're doing around hands-on training. For example, they have this motion capture suit that can capture a ton of data. They have apps for VR essentially to help capture a lot of data from that. And so they're more on the VR teleops and data side of things. There's also Prisma X that's basically building a teleop economy They're building a platform, a teleoperation platform where people can come in, plug in their robots, get them managed by operators. So it's almost like an ecosystem or a marketplace for teleoperators. Frodobots is gamifying data collection through their Sidewalk robots. You can earn rewards, you can earn tokens for essentially driving these Sidewalk robots and participating in competitions. There's a ton of different things they're doing. They're also leaning into entertainment hard with ultimate fighting bots. So that whole ecosystem and SAM, which is their token, is one to really watch. So the next one I want to cover is Geodnet. So Geodnet essentially provides positioning data for robots, agriculture, for a bunch of different industries, right? And they do this through essentially having these devices that you set up, and they help essentially pinpoint where exactly a certain item or certain robot is in the world, right? Basically, they help provide precise positioning through their deepened incentives. And this is really important for robotics. Going a bit deeper into Reborn, like I said, they're really focused on both the motion capture and VR side of things. So they have a motion capture suite that's quite cheap, using that to like collect a ton of data. They also have VR suite of apps that people can go in, and essentially that also generates a ton of data. I think in the future, they'll likely introduce crypto incentives in there as well. So Reborn is one to definitely watch. They've raised quite a bit of funding as well. Very, very strong. Prisma X is building the teleoperation economy. So they're basically building a plug and play teleop platform where you as a robot owner or as a teleoperator can come in and plug in. So for example, let's say you have a bunch of robots in a factory somewhere, you can go and source teleoperators to manage those robots, and essentially they will get paid out in crypto incentives. So think of it almost as job marketplace combined with them also doing a lot of cool stuff around building robotic foundation models, etc. One of the cool things that Prisma X is also really focused on is making sure that the teleoperation side is ultra low latency. So they're really thinking about how do you make sure that people in different areas of the world can go manage robots in another geography, right? Obviously, that's going to be a big one to solve. With Frodobots, with their Sidewalk robots, as well as ultimate fighting bots, they're essentially focusing on turning robotics into a game that you can play. E.T. Fuji, for example, is kind of like Pokemon Go with robots, and you're driving these Sidewalk robots that you can go buy. You can earn rewards for them. There's also token incentives that will be coming in with some of these as well. So there's a lot of cool things here with Frodobots that they're doing. Let's quickly chat about Geodnet. So Geodnet's one of my favorite projects for this cycle. They're providing a decentralized GNSS network, which essentially means they help you with precise positioning. So if you have a robot that's out there in the wild, let's say you have a drone, etc., Geodnet can give you very clear positioning data on that. So the big problem right now with a lot of these robots is it's very hard to know exactly where they're at. And if you don't have centimeter level precision on positioning, it's really, really hard to teleoperate them, as well as just make sure they work, right? If they're off by 5 to 10 centimeters, you're in a completely wrong place. So that's kind of where they've really focused in on, because they basically have, I believe, somewhere like 5 to 10 times better accuracy than a lot of other providers. And they're essentially able to solve this major problem. So robotics is a huge, huge field for Geodnet right now. So Geodnet also is a close partner of Frodobots. They're working together on Frodobots Sidewalk robots as well, and they're basically the positioning provider for Frodobots. So another team to also watch in the gamification side of things is NRN agents. They started off with gaming, and now they're positioning themselves in robotics. So they essentially are building out crowdsourcing solutions for robotics. So being able to crowdsource a lot of data, have people play in these virtual environments to train these robots up, right? So what they're really focused on is the sim to real sector, which is essentially when you train a robotics model in the digital realm, and then that can be basically transitioned out to the physical realm. So if it's already something where you've kind of trained it in a digital environment, right? You have a base level of understanding of the physics that are involved, and that robot is going to be much more efficient because it's not going to the physical world with zero training. So obviously sim to real is not a one-to-one, but what NRN agents is doing is giving robotics companies a baseline so that their robots are just not completely lost in the real world. So guys, thanks for watching this video. To recap, teleoperation is the foundation that essentially allows us to get to a level of autonomy, because we're not going from zero to full autonomy, right? We need that middle level where humans are in the loop, and teleoperation is the way that you can really scale that up. And with crypto incentives, you can really make sure that you're able to actually get a lot more people involved in this. And that's going to be an issue because you do need a trained force of teleoperation people who can actually operate these robots. And I think you're going to have to go beyond your own geography for this. So I do think decentralized solutions for this do make a lot of sense. And I do think this is play to earn version 2.0. So thanks for watching the video. Please make sure to subscribe to the newsletter, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're on X, give this a like. And if you are a robotics team, feel free to reach out to us. Would love to chat to you about how we can work together. We're a go-to-market agency that's worked with a lot of these teams. For example, we've worked with both Frodobots and NRN agents. So thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.